Hey everybody, we don't have the best weather today in New York, but that's okay. Our spirits are still bright and sunny. So this tutorial is going to be on how to use our client raindrop smart contract completely outside of the Hydrogen API. There's a couple of reasons that developers would want to do this. First, if they want to make our Hydro blockchain functionality native to their own mobile app. For instance, if they want to integrate multi-factor authentication in their own mobile app rather than asking their users to download the Hydro mobile app. But the scope is a lot bigger than this. For example, with Snowflake, end users will be creating their own unique Snowflake token that's an Ethereum-based non-fungible token, which will be tied to their Hydro ID. So you can imagine the power of applications that register users' Hydro IDs and guide their process into the broader decentralized Hydro ecosystem. So behind this tutorial, I'm going to assume that you've read through these definitions in the accompanying blog post and have a general understanding of what Hydro is. We're going to complete 3 steps in the tutorial. First, we're going to acquire Hydro on the Rinkeby testnet. Next, we're going to sign our own wallet up with a Hydro ID by calling the sign up user function on the client raindrop smart contract. And finally, we're going to sign up another user with a Hydro ID by calling the sign up delegated user function of the Hydro smart contract. This would most likely be generally done by an application programmatically using Web3, but we're going to call the functions using MyCrypto to do the process more manually so you can see which functions are going to be called by your program. So first, let's acquire testnet Hydro. To do so, you'll first need Rinkeby testnet Ether. I already have some. You can get some by following this link here. You have to tweet at a certain address or something in social media. But to acquire testnet Hydro, we're going to go to the contracts page of MyCrypto. And for the contract address, we're going to use the Rinkeby Hydro token address. This address will go here, and the same contract ABI. We'll simply call the get more tokens function, access it with our MetaMask wallet. You can see that currently this wallet has 0 Hydro tokens on Rinkeby testnet, but when we call this function, and we call it with our MetaMask wallet, it creates a transaction. And as that transaction is confirmed, we will receive 10,000 Hydro in our wallet. If you wanted to replicate this process on the Ethereum mainnet instead of on the Rinkeby testnet, you'd need to acquire Hydro through some other means, another developer in our airdrop. However, we don't have the get more tokens function on our mainnet contract since Hydro is an ERC20 with fixed supply. So once that process is done, the reason that you'll need to do that is even though you won't, no Hydro will move out of your wallet when you're calling the sign up user or sign up delegated user functions on the client raindrop smart contract, the contract checks to make sure that a user has a certain minimum balance of Hydro maintained in their wallet. For the Rinkeby testnet, this staking balance is 10,000 Hydro. So somebody could go through all of these steps with only 9,999 hydro, and they wouldn't be able to call the functions that we're going to call in this tutorial. You can read more about this in the staking hydro section of the accompanying blog post. So now let's call our first function. It'll be the sign up user function to create a hydro ID for our own wallet. To do this, we'll need to go to the Client Raindrop smart contract on Etherscan. We'll take the contract address, paste it into the contract address section in my crypto. We'll take the contract ABI from our Client Raindrop smart contract and paste it into the ABI section. And now we're able to access the Client Raindrop smart contract. We're going to go with first the sign up user function to create a hydro ID for ourselves. And this only takes one parameter, which is the hydro ID that you want to create. So we will call ours go hydro, and the gas limits should be standardized. Call the function. With our MetaMask wallet. And so in the meantime, we can check on our old transaction. You can see that that previous transaction was a success, and I've got 10,000 hydro. If I didn't have these 10,000 hydro, I would have never been able to call the sign up user function. It would have failed. However, since I did maintain that balance, we'll be able to check the sign up user function, and we can see the transaction still pending, but we called the sign up user function, and once the transaction clears, which we just did, we can see that given our public address, the associated hydro ID is now go hydro. So creating a hydro ID for yourself is pretty simple. On the mainnet, the staking balance for this is lower because the next function that we're going to call is, I imagine, generally more useful for an application. The next function we're going to call is sign up delegated user. This is the function that our Hydro API uses when it's storing users' Hydro IDs on the blockchain. Users use their Hydro mobile apps to create a key pair, and with those mobile apps, they sign a message and send it to our API to authorize our API to create a Hydro ID on their behalf. Accordingly, the sign up delegated user function requires two things. Rather than the first, which you could just put in a Hydro ID for yourself, this requires the public address of the account for which you want to create a Hydro ID, as well as a signed message from that wallet in order to demonstrate that you're authorized to create a Hydro ID on their behalf. This is to prevent somebody from just creating Hydro IDs arbitrarily for random Ethereum addresses without their consent. Since each Ethereum address can only have one Hydro ID associated with it, we want to make sure that these are created on behalf and for the user. So now we want to create a Hydro ID on behalf of another account. So let's create another wallet. We can do this on my crypto. For your application, this would just be your user's wallet. Okay, so now we've created this wallet for whom our main wallet will be creating a Hydro ID. And I want to observe the public key for this wallet. And so the address for this wallet is here. So that's one of the parameters we'll need for the sign up delegated user function. And the other parameter that we'll need is a signed message from this address. So that's the contents of that signed message should be not the plain text here, but rather a hash of that plain text. So we can create that hash just with an online generator. Let's take our plain text, hash it, and here's the output. This will be always the same, so if you're embedding this programmatically into your application, you can just hard code that value. But now we'll need to sign that value with the new wallet that we just created. So let's access that wallet. And make sure to put OX at the start of the message for formatting purposes. And we'll sign it, and now we've received this signature. Nobody can replicate this signature unless they have access to this existing wallet. So let's take this signature and let's go back to our client raindrop smart contract. So on my crypto, again, we're calling the same contract address, but we're doing so from a different, so we're going to use the same contract address, the same ABI, but now we've accessed the contract, we're calling a different function, sign up delegated user. This function has different parameters. It requires the Ethereum address for whom we want to create a Hydro ID, so that's what we've got here. But it also requires, remember, it requires a signed message, but here it's asking for V, R, and S. V, R, and S are just essentially a breakdown that together equate to that one signed message that we've created. And so to break them down, I'd recommend using a fixed width text editor like Atom. And here we can paste we've got our original signature here that we've acquired from when the user signed the message. And we want to break it down into this V, R, and S format. To do so, we can take the V is simply the last two characters of their signature. And the R and the S are, let's first get rid of this OX at the beginning. And the R and the S are simply need to be of the remaining characters in equal length. So we'll need and add an OX to the beginning of each of them. And now here's our R value. Here's our S value. So we've acquired our R and our S, and now our V is the correct V, but it's in hexadecimal format. And since my crypto here is asking for a uint, we'll need to convert it to decimal format. I'm pretty sure 1B in hexadecimal will be 27, but just to show you, pull up a converter. Our V value is 1B, which converted to decimal is 27. So our V value here is 27. R is the first half of that signature, and the S is the second half. And so together, all of these values comprise this same sign message from this Ethereum address. So the last step is to decide what Hydro ID we want to create for them. In the Hydrogen API, we generate the user's Hydro ID randomly. The reason that we do this is because this ID is stored on the public blockchain. However, based on whatever needs of your application, you may want to generate this Hydro ID in another way. So right now, since we're doing this manually, we can call it whatever we want. Let's just call it Go Hydro 2.0. And since we're calling this function, we're calling it from our MetaMask wallet to create a Hydro ID on behalf of this new MyCrypto wallet that we created. But we're still calling the function from our MetaMask wallet. Let's view the transaction hash. We've got the public address, the RS, and the V. Has all the necessary parameters, and we've called the function. So here's the Etherscan page of the transaction hash. And as we're waiting for that to load, we can see we called the signup delegated user function, and you saw that we did it from our MetaMask. However, we're doing it for this public address, which matches the public address of the user who gave us the signed message and authorized us to create a Hydro ID on their behalf. So now the transaction is a success. So if we go back to our contract, now we can see that even though this address only signed a message, It never touched the blockchain. It has zero ether. It has zero hydro. It didn't pay the gas costs. Our original wallet was able to create a Hydro ID on its behalf. And so now we can see that the Hydro ID associated with this address is GoHydro 2.0. So congratulations, we have now created a Hydro ID for ourselves, and we've created a Hydro ID for someone else. If we build an application that can do this process programmatically, then we can integrate the Hydro ID into the functions of our application and consequently plug our end users into the entire Hydro ecosystem so that they're able to take advantage of the full range of blockchain functionality. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Feel free to reach out to me or anyone on the Hydro team with any questions. We'd love to guide you through the process of starting to build and develop on Hydro outside of the scope of our API.